Hello and welcome to the show. I am back on BeamNG Drive, taking more of your automation vehicles around the autocross course. We start with a, well, fairly sensible-ish sports car. This one comes from Skybella. It's called the GT4. It is an all-wheel drive, turbocharged i6 powered machine, 507 horsepower, which is quite a lot. 350 torque as well, so that is a pretty damn impressive engine in the car. The downside for the vehicle? Well, it is a bit heavy, 1,432 kilos, meaning it's, well, twice the weight, essentially, of some of the fastest cars that have gone around here. It is also not on the semi-slick tyres. Combined weight with a normal road car tyre, it's probably not going to be competing at the very tippy top of the table. That being said, we have had some pretty fast cars run with the road tyres. Last night we had the Razor, for example, that did actually work pretty well. So it is always interesting to see. Again, this is another car, we have seen a few of these. It's not a purpose-built autocross car, this isn't how you would go about doing it. It is more of a 2-litre sports car, and then entered to see how it fares against the purpose-built autocross cars. I mean, this, from the looks, is kind of a Skyline-esque rival, certainly from the engine. I'd say a Skyline-esque rival right here. Quite a lot of power, 500 horsepower. It's quite a lot of power. I'm not sure much of it's I'm not sure much of it's particularly accessible, judging by the... Oh, we're going to have a big understeering moment. Yeah, the power band is not the greatest. This is always a compromise when you are limited to these 2-litre engines. The compromise is always going to be, yes, you can get... We have seen cars up with the 600-700 horsepower mark. It can be done. But to do it, you have a big turbo. And the downside of that is, well, the lag that goes with it. So the actual kind of almost golden zone for engines around the 300 horsepower mark is where some of our very fastest cars have sat. It might not be the very fastest down the back straight, but they have the control, they have the... Oh, that's a clonk on the wall after the finish line. But yeah, they have the control, the composure and so on, easily accessible power. This, 28 on its first run. It doesn't actually, and I will say this much, it doesn't feel like a bad car to drive at all. Doesn't feel like a bad car to drive around here. The issue for the vehicle is ultimately, I think it's going to be a little bit too heavy when it comes to trying to get around these corners. The tyres aren't going to help it either. When you've already got, you know, what's going to be the issue of, well, being 1.5 tons of car, add on to that the tyre compound. Yeah, that's going to struggle. It is going to struggle. It's going to struggle to get near the Razor. That all being said, it is still it's a pretty interesting little, it's a good little sports car. I mean, some of the cars that I've built, I have driven around autocross, and a lot of them are really bad. They just, normal cars just don't necessarily work very well around here. Just trying to get less understeer through there. The further out wide you are on the way in, you can get a decent line. However, if you are too wide, you're then really messed up for the later parts. I want to really not quite be where I am in the rev range through all of that. What we're doing, straight line speed, just shy of the 80 mile an hour mark. I mean, it's average in terms of straight line speed. I don't know if I clipped that or not. I didn't. Don't mind me, we'll just go round again. I mean, it's not going to go last, even with having to go around the roundabout again. It won't be the slowest time we've ever done around this course. It's, I think, the first time I've had to go around the roundabout again. It was, yeah, very much on edge. I thought I'd got away with it. I just hadn't. And then it's a weave towards the finish line. Yeah, so first only goes up to 32 miles an hour. That's not great. Ooh, there's a flat front of the car. One more run. Can I do? I mean, a 26 would be nice. I think that might be pushing my luck a little bit in this. We're going to have a wobble. There's a little bit of oversteer from the car. It moves around a bit on the suspension. Nothing terrible. I mean, there's no threat of wheel wobble, although I think that is... So maybe first gear would work out of there. We might just about have enough enough rev range to get away with first, although it's almost a, yeah, it's that awkward, you're in first and it's almost an immediate change up. There isn't sequential box in this car, so changing up of gears does take a little bit of time. Wow, it's... See the difference between this and the car, I can't remember the name of it, that ran at the end of last episode that did a 16 through some of these corners. I was saying about cars struggling to take 38 miles an hour through the fast turn there, and this is one of those cars that is just not quite able. It's not bad handling at all, it's just not quite able to take that sort of speed. Come on, here we go. Now jump on the power nice and early. See, if I'd done that in first, it would just slid our way out of the corner. What we're going to do, it did touch 80 miles an hour at least. A little bit more patient on the steering. Come on, find some grip. There we go. Now we can jump back on the throttle once more. Oh, the final big braking zone we go. Little wide, although I think we've just about got away with it. Got away with it as well as we can anyway. And the run up towards the finish line. That is a better run. A low 27. That's a 26 would have been nice. I think that's about all. All I can do. While the engine is quite powerful, it is a little laggy. Ultimately, though, the large amount of weight and, well, sensible tyres, essentially road-going car tyres, are always going to give it a little bit of trouble against the custom-built autocross machines. A very cool vehicle, though. Good-looking car, fun to drive. Our next vehicle is, well, rather purple. This comes from Pentaduce. It is the Storm Jackal 2KR. We have got a naturally aspirated V10. A lot of noise from this car. 351 horsepower, quite a lot of power. 235 torque. We've seen in general the V10s haven't been great on the old torque front. Fairly light, 848 kilos. It is rear-wheel drive though, so this won't be getting the outright record. Could it challenge for the rear-wheel drive record or the two-wheel drive record? Possibly. The power-to-weight ratio is pretty good. It's all if it's got the control. Okay, I don't know if this even got gear ratios. Has somebody entirely forgotten a gearbox in this car? It looks like it's going to be a fifth gear and a fifth gear only because the gear ratios are so short as to be almost entirely pointless off there. Okay, fourth gear, it's just about... Fourth gear works here. This is not a good gearbox. This is not a good gearbox. I know it's a very, very high revving car. I do not trust this vehicle one bit. This is one of the things, certainly with the series, when I get 3 runs with a car, when it's doing strange things like this, it is going to be difficult to try and extract the most out of it. I mean, it feels fairly fast, although it might feel fast. We have seen this a little bit from cars. It's deceptive. Sometimes vehicles feel fast just because they're moving around a lot, rather than because they are actually being fast. Okay, so full throttle is not going to work. The gearbox is stupid. How many gears are there in this? 8 gears or something silly? Okay. Let's... it's not. We had a very, very big crash and spun, and it's still not going to be even remotely close to the worst time. I think this is going to be a very quick car. There's a lot more potential for it if it didn't have a dopey gearbox. Oh, and we pinged the wheel off for good measure. It's a 30, considering a very big crash and a very big spin. That is a surprisingly good time. That is a surprisingly good time. Right, let's just get through the gear. I think we've got to want to set off in about 5th. 4th gear seems to work around here fairly well on the exit of most of these corners. It's going to take a while to get used to. I'm sure there'll be other things. We've had cars in which essentially the braking has become the all-encompassing thing we've needed to deal with. And in some ways, trying to find speed in those sort of cars are difficult because everything's so focused on one aspect of the run, if you like. And this car is going to be another one of those instances. Rather than braking, though, this one here is all of my kind of concentration has to go into getting the gears right. I took that turn so tightly, we lost a wing mirror. I've gone very sideways into there, lost some more time. There's a little bit of wheel hopping from the car, a little bit of hopping from the back of the car. Not quite sure what's causing that. I mean, it has got pretty large tyres, although it's not got the all-wheel drive grip that we normally associate with the big wheel hopping. Right, can we get up to full throttle? I mean, it is quick. It is quick. When you have this much power in a car that weighs 800 kilos, you know, it's gonna be pretty fast. It's just trying to access that power is the very, very tough part. Around these final couple of corners we go. I don't think I've really been able to get to full throttle barely anywhere here. It is damn fast. 21.6. I think that might be a 20.8 is the fastest two-wheel drive car to ever have gone. I can't remember the exact time of the fastest rear-wheel drive car. This is close. 21.6 for the Storm Jackal is very, very close to the fastest rear-wheel drive car and very close to the Pegasus as the fastest two-wheel drive, in that case front-wheel drive vehicle. If only this thing had a sensible gearbox. If this thing had a sensible gearbox, then that would be lovely. If I could actually concentrate on the driving of the car rather than faffing around with what on earth gear do I need to be in. It's just got so much grip in it. It's a huge amount of front-end grip, and it's pretty good on the traction. I don't trust it. I don't trust it one bit. However, it is still able to accelerate nicely. Still able to accelerate well out of these corners. It makes a huge amount of noise. That I'm a little wide through. That might give me trouble going much far. Well, so if the rest of the run's good, we might get away with one slightly duff corner. Very, very oversteery if I let it get up towards the high RPM. In fact, it's very oversteer if I just get carried away at all anywhere with the car. Yeah, this is one of the vehicles that is very difficult to drive, but is actually fast. This doesn't feel fast because you're so on edge constantly, so it just doesn't feel like a quick car. It is, although it's very nearly ploughed itself into a wall. It wobbles its way down the straight. Come on, you mad machine. There's a 50-50 chance at any corner you're going to have a tremendous accident, it feels. Whoa, this huge wobbles and movement from the car. It is very, very quick if you get things right. Yeah, it was a scruffy final run. Incredibly fast if you can get things right, but incredibly difficult with it. That had a sensible gearbox and a little bit more grip, that would be phenomenal as it is. The third vehicle to run the course today, this comes from Pyro Rage. It is the Avan T5. It's perhaps our first sensible van. I say sensible van autocross, but we've had a couple of vans go. This might actually stand a chance of going fairly quickly. All-wheel drive turbo i5 in this one, 417 horsepower and 370 torque. So engine-wise, pretty damn solid. Weight-wise, we are talking fairly heavy. It's 1,300 kilos. Interestingly, lighter than the GT4. It is on full accompaniment of semi-slick tyres. Let's look around at the suspension. We've got pushrod suspension rear. Yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. Wheel wobble is a concern with this, naturally, although if it doesn't do too much of that, we might be actually able to go pretty fast. Seems like a vaguely sensible gearbox as well. Might want first out some of the really, really tight hairpins, but okay. Oh, something weird's got on. We've got like weird prongs at the front. Let's not worry about that. I think a texture's got broken slightly. It's got big stabby sticks at the front. Handling-wise, this is the thing that immediately catches my attention. The turning is not as good as the Jackal that's just gone, and that's perhaps to be expected a little bit. This is a much bigger and much heavier vehicle. It is much, much more controlled. There is actually composure. I can go near the throttle without worrying about the van doing something silly. For a van, it's driving pretty damn well around this course. Ultimately, you're going to want very short cars, very narrow cars. Small wheelbase is good for this kind of thing. A giant van, generally not. Even if the giant van is not too bad in the old weight department, all things considered. And it's heavy, yes, but we've seen heavier cars that are considerably smaller in many ways than this one. Oh, don't hit the inside. I would be worried. We have had a couple of sort of SUVs have issues coming off the banking, threatening to roll. This is the sort of vehicle that might have a high enough centre of mass to do that. Doesn't look like it's going to. I was terrible into that hairpin braking zone. 22.8 for the van. A solid first run for the vehicle. It's definitely a little bit more speed in that. I don't know if a sub-20 is on the cards. I mean, anything doing sub-20s is pretty damn impressive around this. The fact that this van is as quick as it is pretty damn good going. Now, do we go first? It's almost first out of the hairpins. I fear it's going to be. We'll try it on this run. It's just a fraction too short because you're going to have to change just as you then got to jump on the right. I think it's a sequential box in this, so it's not too bad. It's just a bit unsettles the van. Does it? Again, it's not the worst we've seen. It doesn't do it as much as we have seen from some cars. When you do that first to second shift, you get the big oversteer, big kick of oversteer. Doesn't seem to do that with the van, thankfully. Come on, get turned in. Don't do any frame rate lag. That's the last thing we need when trying to thread a van through an autocross course. We can get on the power nice and early there. Let the understeer drag it out slightly wide, but not too wide. I mean, for a van, this is bloody impressive. For a van, the way that this is getting through what is a very technical circuit, this is very good going. It's up to 82 miles an hour. So I think it's the fastest car we've had so far today. Down that back straight. It's certainly a lot more composed than our previous car. Oh, I've made the hairpin this time around. We're down to first. Oh, this is a very awkward place in the rev range. First doesn't really work. Second, it might be a little bit wonky. It's another 22. Can we go and do a 21? I mean, I'd like to be able to beat the Jackal with this. I mean, this is so much more, and I know this is a strange thing to say, so much more composed. This is so much nicer to drive. Jackal was a twitchy death machine, whereas this is just a bit heavy. This is just a bit heavy. Whoa, that's a big slide. It's a bit heavy and in general a bit large. However, yeah, through these corners, I've driven a lot worse. I've driven an awful lot worse. Oh, didn't want to go down to first through there. We'll put it back down to first for the next hairpin. It's just sitting a little bit in between the rev range. And what are we doing speed through here? About 40 miles an hour. Yeah, you see why when we are able to take 46 miles an hour there, in corners are that slow, 6 miles an hour through that corner is such a big difference, such an impressive difference for the cars that do have the grip to get away with it. This does have some pretty decent acceleration to make up some of the lost time. 400 horsepower is pretty good going, even in a vehicle this heavy. You can see down the back straight, it's not going to have any problem accelerating away, but it's just lugging the weight through the corners. That's the noticeable bit. We're nice and neat around the roundabout, at least as we head up through the final braking zone. We have got just a couple more corners to go. Can I keep everything neat and tidy? You want to be flat out through here. I don't think the van hasn't got the grip to be flat out. It is a better run, 21.8. Couple of tenths down on that Storm Jackal. I couldn't quite make it, but for a van, that is mighty impressive. For a very large and pretty heavy van, that is a mighty impressive time, nevertheless. The final vehicle to run the autocross course today, this comes from Wolven Huntsman. It is the Timberwolf Competition all-wheel drive V10 powered machine here, just shy of 300 horsepower, 193 torque. Not the most powerful engine, naturally aspirated V10, so a glorious noise and hopefully lots of power on tap. Fairly light as well, 849 kilos, 1 kilo heavier than the Storm Jackal. But all-wheel drive, less power than the Jackal, but I'm expecting the all-wheel drive system to actually have this car be controllable. Please don't have city gear. Okay, we don't have city gear ratios, which is nice. We are not a sequential box in this. It is a manual gearbox, so you've got that little delay between the gears. It's livable enough in this. Second gear is I think what we're going to probably want out of the hairpins. If we don't, I suspect there's going to be a fair bit of it's the transition between first and second is where we get the big kick of oversteer that I'm trying to avoid. It does feel a little understeery through these corners. It does feel a little for a car, well, I say for the car this light, I was hoping for a little bit more grip. I was hoping to carry a little bit more speed. Ultimately, if we are what is a slightly less powerful car in this competition, while it has got the light weight on its side, it's going to have to make up its time through the corners. That's where it's going to make up its time. It's not going to make up its time on some of the considerably more powerful cars down the straight, so it needs to be spot on in terms of cornering. We are struggling a smidge with that. It's just understeering. I don't know whether this is on semi-slick tyres. It might. I say it's struggling. It's on a 19.0. Is on the full semi-slick tyres. That is a car that does not feel quick, but is actually very quick. First run, it is a sub 20 for the Timberwolf. It feels like you're losing so much time. It feels like you are losing so much time through the corners with this. It's actually a little bit peculiar. I was all ready for a bit of a disappointment in terms of the stage time, because it just felt like it was losing all the time. That might just be a balance thing. It might just feel extra understeer. It feels like it's going slow, but you're actually still maintaining good corner speed. It's one of the reasons why sometimes cars that are actually going slow overall can feel fast, because the balance is absolutely spot on. Doesn't mean the vehicle is actually going particularly quickly. So yeah, maybe this is carrying enough kind of mid-corner speed. The more I've done this, the more you get thrown by cars, because you have a fairly good expectation of what a car can do around here, and then your references are all completely screwed by something. This, yeah, is going far quicker than expected, even if I've got to explore all sorts of different places with the vehicle. Now, we will unleash all of that power, 82 miles an hour down the back straight. Nothing outstandingly, bonkersly fast in this episode. Everything's sitting around the low 80s mark. Brakes are good on this, no issues with that. No juddering, no ABS locking up or ABS failures whatsoever. They just do what they need to. It's an 18.5 for the Timberwolf. We're going even quicker. I think ultimately, to challenge those top cars running in the 16s, this is too understeery. It's not carrying that level of corner speed, and I think they might even be faster accelerating. So put that together, and it's easy to lose a couple of seconds around here. But the fact that this is running running into the 18s, I mean, if we get everything right, could I get it into the 17s? That might be asking a bit, but then I've said that about a fair few vehicles, and they have surprised me, so you never know. I'm going for a little bit of first gear out of these corners. I'm not really sure it's helping particularly, but we're going to give it a try, because that last run was pretty spot on. This is a car that trying to find where I'm losing time is not the easiest. That felt bloody quick through there. This is going better. Now I'm starting to get the hang of the car, I think. I'm starting to make the most of the understeer, make the most of the planted nature of the vehicle. As I said many, many times before, I would rather have a car that understeers than oversteers. I can tend to extract more speed from a vehicle that drives like that, and this is... It might not feel spectacular, but it is definitely working as we head into the roundabout. I think I stuffed up the roundabout a little bit. Yep, that's not a great run around there. We got the braking right. We got all of that right. I actually got the corner completely wrong. I've driven it, I think. I was trying to push it too hard, trying to make up lap time around here. That's wide again. No. How is that quick? That's stupid. Oh, they said 18.0. I'm a little annoyed because on that final run, it was from the roundabout onwards, it was just a bit scruffy. From the roundabout onwards, it was just a bit scruffy, trying to make up some time. I did make up another half a second. It's a very quick car. It doesn't feel it. It feels like you're struggling a bit with understeer. Even when I've kind of got the hang of the understeer, it still feels like you are losing time. You're not. It's damn fun. Well, maybe you're losing time on the likes of the Fireball. It's 2 seconds down on those, yes, but that is something surprisingly quick. On to the results table, and we have a new entry into the top 10. The Timberwolf will go into an 8th place with that 118.0. It is, well, yeah, getting plenty busy up at this end of the table. It was a surprisingly fast car, that Timberwolf. It was a little bit understeery. It didn't feel like it was going amazingly fast. However, well, 8th place is certainly very, very good Indeed. We have to go a little bit further down to find our next two vehicles. The Storm Jackal will become the fastest rear-wheel drive car. It doesn't quite beat the Pegasus. That did a 20.8 for the two-wheel drive record and front-wheel drive record. But yeah, the Storm Jackal will go into a 44th position with a 21.6. It is 0.2 of a second faster than the ARF Supersport, making it the quickest rear-wheel drive car, even if it is incredibly difficult to drive. The van T5, that'll go into a 47th place, very close between those two very, very different vehicles. A 121.8 for that is, as I said, it's an incredible time for a van. The SMV Droop was an SUV, and that is the fastest SUV, but even that was smaller than the van, so yeah, well done to that for even being vaguely competitive whatsoever. And then to find the GT4, it might have been a very pretty car, however, being heavy and on normal road tyres, you're always going to suffer a bit when it comes to autocross. The 27.2 will put it into an 81st place. Kind of goes around the area with some of the sort of faster rear-wheel drive cars. The Galleon Super Wagon is a second faster than it. That was a fairly big, heavy estate car, although I believe that was on semi-slicks. But that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.